Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and today I'm going to answer one of the most debated questions in the wine world. What is better, natural wine or conventional wine? I asked Leon to prepare pairs of similar wines for me. One is made in a natural way and the other one is made in a more conventional way. And I'm going to try to find out which one is which in a blind tasting. Ready, set, go. Before I start with this tasting, if you're new to this channel and want to learn more about wine, then please do subscribe. And now let's taste. The first two wines are both made from the grape variety Sylvaner from the Gambacher Kalbenstein vineyard. Sylvaner once was the most planted grape variety in Germany and it's now only in 5th place, but in Franconia, the region where those two wines come from, it's still a very important grape variety. Sylvaner is a fascinating grape variety and you can make many different wine styles from it, almost like with Riesling. It is less aromatic than Riesling though, and it smells grassy and sometimes a little bit nutty. I'm going to do things slightly different because the bottle shape alone would give these wines away. On top of that, white natural wines are often darker in color, so a normal blind tasting won't do the job. Instead, I'm going to pour the wines into glasses that are labeled conventional and natural, and I'm going to put on a bandana so that I don't see the wines at all, and I'll have to rely on my nose and on my palate alone. So let's go. So this is the conventional wine from the Winzergemeinschaft Franken, a cooperative that is pretty big and that produces quite good accessible wines. The natural wine is the 2020 Stefan Silvaner GK. The GK stands for Gambacher Kalbenstein, but as he is just producing a Landwein, a Vin de Pays, he's not allowed to use the vineyard name on the label, so he just puts GK on there. He founded his winery in 2010 and he harvests very early. Check this out, the color actually looks very similar. There's not a big difference, but I'm still going to use my bandana and I'm going to use my randomizer. I can't see anything now, so I hope that the camera still focuses on me. And now let's spin it. Okay, right off the bat, the wine to my left smells quite open, fruity. It smells of apple, a little bit of grass as well, a little bit nutty too. It's quite clean and quite pristine. On the palate, it's fresh, grippy and structured. It feels a bit fatter, a bit richer than a normal Sylvaner would be maybe, but it's quite nice, quite well balanced. The wine to my right just screams natural at me. It smells of apple, but more like bruised apple, slightly oxidative, not as pristine and clean, but it's quite appealing. There's quite a lot going on there. On the palate, it's much leaner, very fresh, very slightly harsh even. I think I can take my bandana off because I'm a bit worried that my autofocus will fail me. And I'm pretty sure that this is the natural wine and this is the conventional wine. Let's have a look. So I think this was the natural wine and it is right. This is the natural wine. So this must be the conventional wine. And this was actually pretty easy because this was so much lighter and fresher, very high in acidity, whereas this was a bit richer. And on the nose, it was just a little bit slightly dirty, slightly funky, the natural wine. That really gave it away. The grapes for natural wines are often harvested a bit earlier in order to maintain a high level of acidity, and that level of acidity protects the wine, and that is very important if you don't add or add only small amounts of sulfur. And this wine is actually at 9.5% of alcohol, so that's extremely low for a dry white wine. This one is at 12.5, so there's quite a big gap. The question now is, which wine do I prefer? This one is a pretty classic, pretty clean Sylvaner, but it's not out of the ordinary. I rate this 84 points. It's good, really good, but not that exciting. This one is quite a bit more exciting. I think it's very interesting, but it's not very complex. It is better than this one. I would rate this 88 points, but I also gotta say that this one is $40, whereas this one is just $10. So there's a big gap in terms of price. Oftentimes natural wines are quite a bit more expensive than conventional wines. That is because it's quite difficult to make a good, cheap natural wine. If you make natural wine, you have quite a lot of risks that you have to factor in. On top of that, those winemakers often invest more into aging of the wine or the way that they treat the wine. This one was fermented and aged in barrels for 1 year in contact with the lees to give it a little bit more roundness, a little bit more texture. I think this was just fermented in stainless steel and bottled fairly early. The next two wines are Macabeus from Penedès in Spain. Macabeo is also known as Viura in Rioja, and it's a popular grape variety used also for the production of cava. I'm tasting the 2019 Albet y Noya 3 Macabeus and the 2019 Partida Creus MC. Both of them are Macabeus, but this one is made in a natural way, whereas this one is made in a conventional way. And you can already tell from the bottle design, this looks so natural. So let's see whether I can actually taste the difference between the two. Check this out, I can even lift off the whole wax capsule on this one. That's a first for me. Wow, pretty nice. So I think this time I actually need the bandana because this looks very dark. It's made in an orange wine way, so I would be able to tell which one is which, just from looking at it. Okay, let's spin it and autofocus, focus on me. All right, let's see. Start with this one. The wine to my left smells of apples, a little bit of pears as well. It's quite smoky. On the palate, it's very rich and concentrated, a little bit alcoholic, a little bit too rich. The wine to my right smells a little bit of orange zest, bruised apple again. It's a bit more spicy, a bit herbaceous even. And on the palate, there's quite a lot of grip. There are tannins coming through. There's fresh acidity. There's also good body. But there's also a little bit of tannic bite. I would say that the wine on my right hand side is definitely the natural wine. It feels like an orange wine to me, and this is the conventional wine. Let's see. 2 for 2. So the conventional wine here was pressed and then fermented at cool temperatures, while the natural wine, was macerated on the skin partially. And this is how you get this color, much more intensity in color and also more tannic grip. This style of wine is very popular in the natural wine scene, and it's also called orange wine because of the color. Obviously, these wines can be very interesting and they can be great with food because they just have more structure, more intensity on the palate in particular. They can be matched with all different kinds of dishes. When it comes to my rating, I would actually say that this is a bit better than the conventional Silvaner that we had, even though it's at the same price point. I would rate this 86 points, while this is really delicious, a very well made orange wine, a very complex and complete wine, and I rate this 90 points. It's pretty good, but there's also a big difference in terms of price. This is at $10 while this is at $28. So quite a big gap. The whites were pretty easy. Let's see whether the reds are a little bit more challenging. I'm starting with a very interesting example. These two wines are from the same winery, from the same location, were made in more or less the same way. But this one was not sulfured, while this one was. Sulfur is obviously a very important point when it comes to natural wine. Hardcore natural wine geeks don't want to remove anything from the wine and don't want to add anything to the wine, so they don't add any sulfur at all, which can be an issue because wines without sulfur are generally less stable and they can oxidize much more readily. Natural wine fans would say that sulfites mute the aroma of the wine, and they are obviously not a natural part of the wine. But this is a very long discussion. I don't want to get into that. Let's see which wine is better. The color of the two wines is pretty much exactly the same, so I'm not going to use this bandana. I'm just worried that I will be out of focus for the rest of the video, and I'll just close my eyes while the glasses are spinning. Okay? Or even better, I'm going to turn around. Let's do this. All right, let's start tasting these two. So both wines are from Baden. The grapes were sourced from volcanic and chalky soils. They were spontaneously fermented and aged in larger wooden barrels, and they taste very similar. But there's a difference in terms of flavor. This wine is more intense, more open, while this is slightly more closed. I would therefore think that this might be the wine without any added sulfites, while this is the one that was made in a conventional way. Shall we check? So this wine is the natural wine. 343, man. So this must be the conventional wine. And this is really interesting, especially because these wines are the same wine basically, just made with or without sulfites. And I prefer this one, gotta be honest. This is just more herbal, a little bit licorice coming through as well, in addition to the cherry flavors. But this is lots of cherry, raspberry flavors and is quite a bit more complex and complete. I would therefore rate this 90 points, while this would be 89 points. And the last two wines are both 2017 Blaufränkisch from the Laithaberg in the Burgenland in Austria. So they should be fairly similar, but one is made in a more natural way while the other is more conventional. This wine here is from Sommer and this wine from Lichtenberger Gonzales. And you can guess which one is the natural wine. Yes, it's this one. I already said in my natural wine tasting video that natural wine producers spend quite a lot of time on their labels and the design of the bottle, which is a bit funny if it's just all about the wine inside the bottle. But yeah, oftentimes they have the cooler and the more interesting, the more creative labels and capsules. But now let's see who has the cooler and more interesting wine. The color is again very similar in the two wines, so I think I can do without the bandana. Okay, let's spin it. All right, let's taste. This is again very interesting. Natural winemakers are very hands-off and they're very careful with oak in general. Very few of them use a lot of new oak. And I think in this case, the oak really points me into a direction. While the two wines were made in the same location and are pretty much the same price, one feels a little bit leaner, a little bit fresher, even though the alcohol is not that much different. This one is 13% and this one is 13.5%. But the oak is just much more pronounced in this wine, while this is lean, fresh, and very much fruit driven. I therefore say that this is the natural wine. Let's see. Yes, 4 of 4. I did it. And this is the conventional wine. It's just a little bit more fresh. I would say actually they are pretty much the same quality. I think they're both really good. I would rate them both 91 points. But this is just more fruit driven, while this is a bit more complex, a little bit of chocolate flavors coming through on top of the blackberry, currants and orange zest flavors. The Lichtenberger Gonzales is also a bit more grippy and has more acidity, while the Sommer is a bit rounder and a bit more plump. This was a fascinating tasting and it clearly showed that you can smell and taste the difference between conventional and natural wines. Natural wines are more open, more complex, can also contain more faults, but on the palate they are more fresh, more grippy and more structured, while the conventional wines were a little bit easier to approach, a little riper, a little rounder and a little richer. I gotta say that my favorites in the tasting were mostly the natural wines. They were just a little bit more interesting, even though I don't generally favor natural wines over conventional wines. There's obviously also an issue that we couldn't really taste in this case. Storage is very important when transporting and keeping natural wines. They can go bad more quickly, and we have obviously a selection here of really great natural wines, while there are also some out there that aren't so great. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, then please like it down there. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, what do you prefer, natural or conventional wine? Let me know down below. Hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty.